This is the Motivated Business Show, hosted by me, Mark Terrell, the author of Motivated, the Reluctant Leader's Guide to Building a Business That Sets You Free. In my book, I share the 7-step process to get the measure of your business. MEASURE is an acronym that stands for Mirror, Evaluate, Action, Systemize, Unify, Review, and Energize. On each episode, I'll be chatting to a business owner about how they stay motivated and how they've got the measure of their business. So without further ado, let's find out who's joining me on this episode. Hello and welcome to this episode of the Motivated Business Show with me, Mark Terrell. Today's guest is all about numbers and looking forward to delving a bit more into the nuts and bolts of running a business and the importance of obviously managing your business with knowing your numbers and all that sort of stuff. So before we do that, a quick reminder that I will be referring to a 7-step process towards the end of the podcast, where I link the conversation to the 7-step process. That 7-step process I've written about in my book. You can get that book from Amazon in paperback or in Kindle form, or you can get it direct from me from my website. Then we'll get that to you. If you'd like to support the show, then there's the buy me a coffee option, and if you buy me a coffee, that was much appreciated. If you buy me 2 coffees, then I would be more than happy to send you a copy of my book. So look out for the link for that, and if it's easier, there's a QR code there for you to scan from your phone that will take you straight to my Buy Me a Coffee page. So there we are. So without further ado, let's bring on Garry to join us. Welcome, Garry.
Morning, Mark.
Looking forward to our conversation. But before we do that, before we get stuck into that conversation, let's give you the opportunity to introduce yourself.
Hi. Right. Okay. An introduction. That's always a piece, isn't it? So I'm Garry Mumford. I run a business called Insight Associates, which I've done now for 32 years. We're based in Stansted in Essex. We're an accountancy firm with a big difference because we primarily involved in providing an outsourced finance department model to our clients. So in essence, we get involved on a day-to-day basis with providing them with the financial skills, the financial team that they probably wouldn't otherwise have. And primarily we're focused on businesses which are ambitious and growing and looking to move forward, and they need that extra financial support, which typically they don't get from other sources or other ways of doing it. So we've been doing that for a long time. We must be doing something right.
Indeed, absolutely. Indeed. Obviously looking after your own numbers at the same time.
Yes, yeah. Well, when I get round to it, I think it's always the thing, isn't it? You're always bad at doing the stuff for yourself that you do for other people. I think we're all guilty of that.
Yeah. What's they say about a builder's house is never completed, isn't it?
Yeah. Yes, that's it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think we've all got to that one.
Right, so we haven't mentioned it yet. We're going to talk about mention it again later on. But you've written a book all about the numbers in business and the importance. So I've dug my copy out just to have a bit of a refresher on those, and a few things from your website I've picked out. So firstly, what I noticed on your website, you talk about infancy, adolescence, and maturity in businesses. So do you want to give us a little bit of an insight into what you mean by what those sort of 3 things are?
Yeah. Talking about books, this is actually, I won't take all the credit for this. This is a bit of a concept that I stole from a guy called Michael Gerber, who wrote the E.M.E.A.S.U.R.E Revisited. I would say to everybody, if you haven't read E.M.E.A.S.U.R E, go out and get yourself a copy and read it. I think it's still one of the best business books ever written. I've had the honour and privilege of meeting Michael a few times, and he's, well, despite his advancing years, he's still an amazing character with amazing energy. The concept, basically, which we sort of evolved from Michael's original form, was that I believe every business can go through 3 steps in its life, really. Virtually all businesses start off as infant businesses. As an infant business, it's owner dependent. If the owner doesn't turn up for work, the business doesn't operate. And that's probably where we all started from, really, in business. Certainly I can vouch for that for myself. I started with one partner when I first started out, and we were everything. And then obviously things evolve. So nothing wrong with being an infant business. It's not, none of these stages are wrong. They're just a different part of the evolution of a business. But as an infant business, a lot of small businesses which never really develop beyond that point fall into that category. So all your tradespeople, your builders, your plumbers, your electricians, all those sort of people run infant businesses. They do the work. And then they might get one other person or whatever, but still it all evolves around them. So it's a very people orientated business. The other end of the scale is a mature business. Now, when a business becomes mature, it's no longer really people dependent. It now becomes systems dependent. The people operate the system. So the business has become and evolved into something which is a machine that works, that has very clearly defined ways of doing things, and the people come in to operate that system. And if someone leaves the business, someone else with the right skill set can come along and operate that system as well. So the value in the business is the system. And that truly is when you build value into your business, because if you want to sell your business, you can't sell yourself. So therefore, you need to sell something that has independent value, and that often is the system. The interesting bit for me is a bit in the middle, which I just love, this concept of adolescence, which actually really is Michael's word. But that is the point in time when you've got to grow out of being an infant business and develop into a mature business. Now, the reality is most businesses never really reach full maturity, but they can get some way towards it. The interesting bit about adolescence is letting go of all the things that you knew before. And it is just like the teenager going to university. You've got to leave the family home and start doing your own laundry and cook your own dinner. It's that sort of concept that says all the things I've known before have gone away now, and I've got to fend for myself and do things differently. And that often is where business owners are when they're in the adolescent space. I don't know what to do. I've never had to do this. I don't understand, and that typically is where we focus our efforts, on businesses which are moving into that adolescent phase, where they're open-minded enough and realise that they need to change, and they're motivated to change because they know that they can grow up their business and create value and build something much bigger and better.
That's really interesting.
Really fun, that bit.
Yeah, excellent. And so the other three things I've picked up, well, there's loads on your website, but the other thing which sort of, I'm guessing sort of links into that three-step process is the three things that you provide. So you provide bookkeeping, you provide accountancy, and you also finance director role or outsource finance. So how do they fit in with what you've just described?
Well, our model can be looked at as like a pyramid. And we sort of see a finance and accounting function in a business like a pyramid, and it has three layers. Those three layers you talked about: the sort of the bookkeeping, day-to-day transactional stuff, the accounting, which is where the accountant comes along and makes some sense of it, and the finance director bit on top. So you've got that pyramid type shape, and the bottom layer, the bookkeeping layer, is where all the day-to-day graft is done, where often where most of the effort is, in terms of, in the good old days of paper pushing, but not so much these days. But it's recording transactions, it's keeping all the day-to-day stuff going, sending the invoices out to the customers, paying the bills, all that sort of thing. And then in the middle layer, the accountant, in whatever form, comes along and makes sense of that raw data, adds the bits that are missing, makes sure it all works, it's reconciled, it's good quality, and then maybe produces some information out of it, some accounts, some management accounts of whatever type, however you want to describe it, really. The top of the pyramid is where the value is really added, is where the finance director comes along and uses what's there now with good quality financial data to actually help the businesses make better decisions about where they're going, really understand what they're doing, and then make sure that they really understand the implications of the decisions that they're taking, the way in which they're going to go forwards. And that finance director, a real finance director, in my view, is the candid friend of the owners of the business or the leaders of the business. You don't make decisions without involving that person, because they really understand the numbers, understand what the consequences are of the things that are going on. Now, for me, the pyramid is the model, because you can't be on top of the pyramid unless you built it beforehand. And the true foundation of your pyramid is all the stuff that's at the bottom. So getting that stuff right at the bottom is really, really key, because if you don't get that right, then you're going to build on something which is going to fall over. And that's really always been our concept. So we at Insight, our sort of way of thinking is, well, the best way of delivering that is through the outsourcing model, where we deliver the entire pyramid for the business. We do all the day-to-day stuff at the bottom. We make sure that's done to a good quality, it's done on time, it's complete and it's accurate, and then we build on it so that we can add value back to our clients, which is always our motivation.
Motivation. We'll have to come back to
Ah, it's the key word here.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, the couple of thoughts I've had when were talking there, the importance of monthly accounts. So, tracking as you go,
Yeah,
rather than waiting for that sort of end of year sort of magic, maybe the email that drops in from your accountant to say, oh, congratulations, you made a profit, or
yeah.
vice versa. Um, and so that'd be interesting to know a bit more about that and what your views on that. I think.
I think, well, I often say to people they're called management accounts for a reason because they help the management. So I would challenge anybody who thinks they're getting management accounts to look at what they're getting and say, does this help me make decisions about my business? Does this help me really understand what's going on in my business and how I can improve it, or what areas I need to look at, review, what things are working well, what things are not working well? And in most cases, what we find is that they're not truly management accounts at all. They're actually really just a set of numbers, almost scorekeeping. They, like you say, Mark. There's something that turns up really late. They tell you how you did last year. So what? That's all well and good, but that's just a scorecard. That's just saying yes, okay. And unfortunately, we find so often when we talk to new businesses that they're very much motivated by the top and bottom of their profit and loss account. They look at how much their sales are and think, yeah, my one's bigger than the next one. It's growing, it's bigger. Aren't I good? And then look at the bottom and say, did I make any money doing it? And forget what's going on in the middle. And it is actually what's going on in the middle that often makes all the difference. And the other thing that we find as well, in terms of making sure that businesses get a really comprehensive pack of information that helps them, is that most people who don't have a financial background, which to be honest is most people that are running businesses, completely ignore the balance sheet. Now, the balance sheet's a great accounting concept, made up by accountants, and what's all that about? But actually, it tells you more about your business than anything else. But then you've got to understand it. And that's, again, what we get very heavily involved with our clients. We will take them through this. We'll talk to them through it with their information on the basis that we built the pyramid so we know it's good quality information. And make sure that all of the things they get are relevant to them and that they really truly understand it and they can interpret it. And that's an ongoing process. It's constantly a delivery process. But yeah, it's interesting. I was talking to a prospect many years ago who'd managed to build a business that had about 30 people working in it. It was doing, I can't remember now, 3 or 4 million turnover. But it was actually doing all right. But actually it hit a bump in the road, which is why I was ending up having a conversation with him. And you had to take your hat off this guy. He built this from nothing. He'd done a really good job employing all these people. His product was exceptional in the marketplace. And he turned around to me about 2/3 of the way through the meeting and said, "Explain to me, what are management accounts?" So he'd been running this business for a few years and didn't even understand the concept, let alone getting the data. And that was, unfortunately, it's a reflection, I think, unfortunately, of my profession. That the majority of accountants in practice, your high street accountant, your accounting firms, are very focused on the things you have to have, not the things you need to have. And so therefore you go to your accountant, they'll do your tax return to you because you have to have a tax return done. And in order to have a tax return done, you've got to do your annual accounts, and you've got to do, if it's relevant, you've got to do VAT and all that sort of stuff. They'll focus on the things you have to have. This is fine because they have to be done. They don't focus on the things that the business needs in order that it's going to be able to grow and succeed. And that for me is a really key thing. And therefore most of the time, as I say, people. Well, one of the other mantras, I think I mentioned it in the book as well, is that one of the things I really find amusing is that most of us as individuals in our private life are very poor at managing our financial affairs. We're never taught how to do that stuff. We're never taught how to do it. So most people are pretty crap at managing their personal money. Then they go into business. Say no more.
I know. Yeah.
And it's the same, because why would they know any different? Because they wouldn't. In the same way as I wouldn't know how to run their business in most cases, because of what they do. Again, it was a Michael Gerber thing from the E.M.E.A.S.U.R.E, where he talked about the fact that it's a technician that goes into business. When you're you're the best widget salesman in the world. You can sell widgets forever, and you're working for the big widget company. When you wake up one morning and you think, I can do this for myself. What do I need to be working for this guy for?
Yeah.
Yeah. And you go off and build your own business. And as Gerber says, you're then working for a raving lunatic, because all of a sudden
Yeah.
you're trying to do everything that you've never done before, not just sell widgets.
Yeah.
Because there's all those other disciplines in the business, and you don't know anything about those things any more than I could sell widgets. So it's a really interesting mix. And another book which I'm actually really fond of is The Beer-Mat Entrepreneur by Mike Southern and Chris West. Another goodie. They have this concept of having a team around you. What they call cornerstones. So, if you're the middle man in the middle who's running the business, leading the business, driving that business, have the concept, you need around you the alternate skills which you don't have, because you can't succeed on your own. You need someone who can do the health and safety stuff, the production stuff, the HR stuff, and the finance stuff.
Right. I thought when you said Beer-Mat Entrepreneur, you're going to talk about, if you need some help, go down the pub. There's bound to be someone down there that knows what to do.
Yeah, apparently, again, I mean, it seems like I know the people who write these books, but I know Mike and Chris. And that it's called The Beer-Mat Entrepreneur because the original concept was actually written on the back of a beer mat in a pub.
Right. Excellent. That's not one I've heard before, so I'll be looking at that's for one for me to check out.
It's been around a few years. I'm not even sure it's still in print, actually. Yeah, Beer-Mat Entrepreneur, Mike Southern and Chris. Mike Southern is a very successful serial entrepreneur. He's done exceptionally well, and Chris is a professional writer. He's written a number of fiction books and that sort of thing. So actually, they were a good combination because Mike had all the ideas and Chris turned it into English. So
that's a perfect segue into what I was going to say was that what you've just been talking about. When people set up a business, they don't do it because they want a business. They've got some sort of entrepreneurial spirit. They think, like you just said, I can do this better than maybe my employer or maybe a supplier that they've been dealing with, saying, well, I can do that better than they could do. And they set it up. So they've got that entrepreneurial spirit, but there comes a time when that's not enough. It's when, you need something else and you need maybe someone else, or you've mentioned the importance of systems, understanding that, systems run a business, and a lot of entrepreneurs aren't good at systemizing things. That's what I've come across. Is that something that...
very true. And it goes back to the infancy, adolescence and maturity model, doesn't it? Because virtually all businesses start as infant businesses, where it's the individual or maybe a group of people that have gone out there and done the thing because they've had that, as Gerber puts it, entrepreneurial seizure. They've had that moment where they think this is a great thing to do. And I mean, we've all done it. You've done it. I've done it. You go out there and you do this, and that's how Insight started 32 years ago. Because I got fed up working for some other idiot and thought I can go out there and help other businesses in this way. And and like all business journeys, it's never straightforward. Here to here, it's all over the place as you go through it. But I think there's nothing quite like it in my view for working for yourself if you're the right mindset. Most people need the security, questionable, but the security of employment. We're not all the same in that sense. But I think when you go out on your own and it suits you to do that, then it's a phenomenal adventure. But no one succeeds on their own. And I think the reality is that businesses that fail, in my experience, and I for a while I was quite a student of why businesses fail, which I think was really, really an interesting education from all perspectives. And businesses tend to fail because the people running those businesses don't realise their own limitations. They think they're Superman and they can do everything, when in fact actually no one can. You need a team around you. You need to bring in those skills. And the one, obviously I'm bound to say this, but the one skill you can't do without is finance and money, because at the end of the day it all boils down to money. so you need to grow up in that way, and this is when if you're not just going to be a infant business all your life, which is fine. I'm not suggesting for one moment that's a wrong place to be. It suits many people. In fact, the vast majority of businesses in this country are infant businesses because they are people with a trade and a skill, and like I say, electricians, plumbers, decorators, all those sort of people are infant businesses because they go to work to earn money by running their business, and that's enough. That's fine. The entrepreneur is the one that says, I can do more than this. If I can flex this, I can grow this, I can build on this. And then you're into a completely different world because you can't do everything anymore than you could at the beginning. And you need to have that shift of mindset that says, in order for me to move this from here to here, I've got to build a team around me of people that have got the complementary skills I need to make it happen. And that's often when we're having conversations with prospective new clients, because if that to us is what's going on in their head is the most important part of whether we can deliver a successful service to them. Have they woken up to the fact they need to do things differently? And then build, and like you say, add systems and processes and more strict ways of doing things so that if they don't turn up for work in the morning, the business still operates. So people know what they've got to do, it works. And ultimately, if you can take that to its fullest extent and turn it into something mature, then you've got something which you can sell because you can walk away from it and the value is still there in the business. And that's an exceptionally difficult thing to achieve. But if you've got that as a clear objective, it's doable. But it is about process. It is about systems. It's about disciplines. It's a very different place from where you started out sitting in your back room, sort of trying to get your first sale, isn't it? I mean,
yeah. I talk about it in terms of being the biggest cog in the machine. And when you're the biggest cog, when you stop turning, then all the little cogs around you stop turning. Yeah. So rather than being that biggest cog, think about yourself as the oil that keeps all the cogs moving. And what do you need to do to make sure that happens? And it's a completely different concept with regards to being that biggest cog. It's that, well, what do actually those little cogs need from me, and how do I keep them turning?
So it's a very good way of looking at it, and it is exactly that. But that's a huge. I think that's where people really struggle, especially if they've been infant for a few years and they've been used to being in control of everything and having everything going across their desk. You've got to move away from that so that you're in a position where your role in the business is one where you're adding value by being there with your experience, your background, but other people are doing it. Many years ago, long before Insight, and I almost certainly had hair and if nothing else, but I worked for a chap for a short period and his son. The old man, as he was, it was a factory, a reasonable sized factory. He used to turn up in the morning in his car. He had his own private parking space at the front. Right? And he parked his car, and his office was at the front of the factory. But he always didn't go straight into his office. He walked right the way up to the back of the factory and walked right the way through the entire factory before he got to his office. And that could have taken him a few minutes or sometimes half an hour, depending on whether he engaged in conversation with people or whatever. And then invariably the phone rang. And then all the senior management of the business, of which I was one of, were dragged into his office to talk about something he had seen whilst he was walking through the factory that morning. Why are we doing it this way? Why is Fred doing this? Well, I saw that this morning. This isn't tidy. There was always something. But he then sent us away to go and fix that problem. And that was his contribution. And actually, there was value in that, even though at the time we all thought we were like naughty school kids, being dragged into headmaster's office. But it was interesting that he took so much interest in his business and what was going on. He didn't shut himself away in an office. He actually went out there and looked at what was going on. Everybody had a huge respect for him because of what he'd achieved. He actually invented the thing that the business was based around. So, he sort of had a big thing behind that. But it was really interesting. It was this idea of the fact that he started every day by walking through the whole factory, engaging with the people, looking at what was going on. But he wasn't actually doing any of it.
Yeah. I think I used to watch those programs. You don't see them quite so often now, where the CEOs go behind the scenes and pretends to be a new employee, and then they suddenly realise things about the business that they never knew before. So it's like that in the reverse, isn't it? To actually not allowing it to happen. If you do that walk around and actually keep your eyes on what's going on, you're going to prevent becoming that person that just goes to their office and believes certain things and just works with that regard. And it's only when you actually go down to the grass, onto the shop floor to find out what's really happening, that you can actually really properly run the business.
But not actually getting involved in doing it.
Not actually doing it. That's right. Yeah.
Making sure that there's a system and a process in place that people understand and can follow, so that it's done on a consistent basis.
Yeah.
And I go back. It's interesting actually, because I won't take any credit for a lot of these thoughts, in the sense that it's what we've learned and built up over many years. But a lot of it does come back to, I keep thinking of Gerber's E-Myth in this, because it's exactly the same concepts he talks about: the consistency of the customer experience. You're not going to deliver a consistent customer experience unless you've got a good system. Because if a different employee does something for a different customer, they're going to get a different experience. That's not the way. Yeah. And he's very big on McDonald's as being the biggest small business in the world. I think it's probably fair to say that, forget the fact that what they deliver is not the point. The point is how the business is run. Yeah. You can go into a McDonald's store anywhere in the world and get a consistent experience. Yeah, that's the way they run. So as a customer, if you go into McDonald's, that's what you're going to get. I'm not suggesting whether you like it or don't like it. It's not the point. The point is, it's consistent no matter where it's delivered, with 20,000 branches or whatever they've got. You can always have a consistent, and that's an incredibly powerful thing to achieve, because that's why you go back, because next time you're going to get more of that.
Well, I mean, if you're a fan, then you know what you're going to get, and as long as that experience is the same each time, then you're just going to keep going back. And
exactly. If the second time you go, or the third time you go, it's crap and it's not good, and then the following time it's even worse, you're not going back anymore, are you? You got to have a consistency of experience all the time.
Indeed. Excellent. Right. I'm just going to let you sit back just a little bit for me, just to go through what we've been talking about and sort of connect it to the 7-step process in the book. Right. So what I'm going to do here is, we've already mentioned the importance of systems. So systems run a business, and that's why Systemize is one of the chapters in my book. And the realization was, when I sold my retail business, it was the systems that we set up that actually made it easy to sell as well, in that they weren't buying anything about what I brought to the business. It was actually, they were buying the business because it actually could run without me. So that's another reason why systems work, as you've mentioned, Garry. And I think also, and I haven't asked you yet, but I'm going to ask you what makes you tick. But it's important with any business owner to understand what makes them tick, because that leads into the actions that they take and the things that they like doing within the business. So it's really important to understand yourself first of all, and the reason why you want to be a business owner, and making sure that the things that you come to work for are being met in your business. Because if they're not, if you end up doing what I did, ended up doing the things that didn't motivate me most of the time, the business sapped my energy and didn't give me energy. So when you understand what motivates you, you get the energy from your business, and that keeps you and it drives you forward, and it helps you to actually navigate those bumps in the road that are bound to come along with regards to running a business. And then these two steps sort of add together, really. Evaluating is understanding where you are today and where you want to be, and making sure you have a plan. And you talk about in your book about the importance of having a plan and making sure your team know about it and know the reason why they're doing things and where they fit in and all that sort of stuff, which sort of fits in with the last 3 steps actually. But the action steps is trying things out, because you won't get things right first time. Understanding that you give things a go, and then when things do work and actually you realize how important they are for a business, you turn those action steps into the systems that run the business. So just a little bit of a brief sort of overview on the importance, how it links into what we've been talking about, the 7-step process in the book, and the reason why I put those steps in were personal experience, to be honest, and I'm sure you're the same, Garry. You hold your hand up and say, I'm not writing this because I got it right first time. I'm writing it because I know the importance, and I got a lot of this stuff wrong.
Yeah, you absolutely do. You make huge mistakes along the way. I think, if I could have half the money I've lost in the last 32 years, I'd be happy. That is what happens. And I think I think you've got to accept that's what happens, and you've got to sometimes take business is risk, and you've got to take a gamble on things, and just go for it, and then evaluate whether it's working for you or not. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's the same
brilliant.
thing. It's key to, how you see it. I think if you get pulled back too quickly, then you're never going to move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Before you go, Gary, I haven't asked you actually, but what is it that keeps you motivated and keeps you
I
going
don't
back
know.
to work?
It's an interesting question, really. I love the fact that I can lead a happy team. That people, my team are, motivated in the same way as I am to make a difference to the businesses we're working with. I love to see that those businesses grow and develop and improve, and then to feel that we've been part of that. We're sitting around the table with our clients on an equal level, making a difference to their business, helping them see the things that otherwise they wouldn't have seen.
Yeah,
It's really satisfying to feel you've made a difference, and to see those businesses grow, really, which is great.
brilliant. Now, we've mentioned your book. And you said before we came on air that you wanted to make an offer. So if you've lasted this long and you've been listening this long, there's a special offer that Gary's going to announce.
Yeah,
So over to you, Gary.
yeah, yes, I wrote the book, so I think it's good. But I'm very happy to give a copy of my book to any of the listeners this morning. If they get in touch with Mark, and I'm sure that all the processes for doing that at the end, please send him your contact details, your name and address, and we will put one of these in the post to you. And then please have a read and see what you think.
There we are. Fantastic offer. Thank you, Gary. And I'll be revisiting my copy because I've got it here. And like I say, it's one of those books actually that everybody should read because it's the numbers that actually keep a business in going. And if you take your eye off those numbers, then ultimately your business may actually come to an end. Who knows? Thank you, Gary, for your time this morning. Really enjoyed it. Unfortunately, the time has flown by. There's lots of other things I've written down that I was going to ask you, but unfortunately, we haven't got time for those. But if you are listening to this and what Gary's been talking about resonates, then you know where to find Gary. Insights Associates, and also on LinkedIn is a good place, I guess.
Yep, absolutely. Brilliant.
Thanks a lot, Gary.
Thanks, Mark. Thank
you. Have a great day. So there we are, Garry Mumford. He knows his numbers, but do you know your numbers? And so making sure that you know your numbers about your business, and maybe a lot of the things that we've talked about actually realise that actually you don't pay enough attention to them. So there's lots of things you could do. Get in touch with us or get Gary's book or whatever you want to do, but make sure that you have a handle on your numbers. Right, just before we wrap things up then, just a reminder about my book. You can get that from Amazon or direct from me. If you would like to contribute to the podcast, just to keep the wheels in motion, we'd be very grateful as we don't have a sponsor as yet. So you can do that by buying me a coffee. And as I said at the beginning of the program, the episode, if you buy 2 coffees, then you'll get a copy of my book and I will send that to you. So thank you for those that joined us live. Hope you got lots of value. If you catch this on replay, don't hesitate to ask us any questions. We'll be more than happy to come back to you with any answers that we have, if we can answer them. And until the next episode of the show, take care, have a great day, and see you next time.